Grand Rising, everyone. I hope everyone is amazing. I hope everyone is well. I wish all of you well. I want to open this up by saying that real eyes realize, right? They realize it. Real lies. Now, I titled this video specifically that life's experiences have taught me that fear itself is a disease. Fear itself is a virus. Now, this may be part one. I'm probably going to do a two-part series with this. I only have about 15 minutes right now before an appointment, but I had to go live about this because it's paramount, it's important, and I need to share some thoughts, share some experiences, share some stories that have truly empowered me in my journey in life and my daily walk, but I hope and I believe can empower many of you. And I'm going to reference some things that are probably very relative to many of us. Again, remember, real eyes realize real lies. Now, many of us have seen the movie Monsters, Inc., right? Disney came out with this amazing movie. We got Boo, right? And we got the monsters, and we got the kids, we got, the monster city, we got the normal human city and all that stuff. And, if you haven't seen this movie, I encourage you to watch it. I highly implore you to watch it. But if you haven't seen this movie, what happens is these monsters, what they do is they sneak into little kids' rooms at night, right? And they scare the shit out of these kids. And then when these kids scream, the scream from their fear is what the monsters actually harvest. They harvest that energy, and then they empower their city with that energy. Isn't that interesting to think about? Isn't that interesting to think about that how much fear is our society being placed in right now? Now, I know for a fact, we know for a fact that, and it's been proven that stressful environments can cause cancer, right? So then fear can cause stress, which can cause dis-ease. Why? Because when you're fearful, you're not operating freely, you're questioning everything. When you're fearful, you're operating stressfully, not freely. When you're fearful, you're questioning every single move you're making. You need a mask on, you need gloves on. You're not trusting your own bacterial system that the Most High blessed you with, gave you, so that you can go sow seeds and put your hands into the dirt and get dirty and go be around other bacteria, right? Other good bacteria. Instead, we fearfully buy into antibiotics. Instead of buying into fermented vegetables, instead of buying into probiotics and prebiotics, instead of buying into sowing normal seeds and sowing actual seeds so that we can reap a harvest. You see, as above, so below, on earth as it is in heaven, right? But we also reap what we sow. And so often we're allowing somebody else to sow their seeds into our life, into our mind, peeing on our brain, and we become dependent on them rather than independent. We become reactive rather than proactive. Guys, I opened up this live referencing the movie Monsters, Inc., how they literally harvest children's fear and empower their city with that fear. And also, many of us have seen the movie Apocalypto. Now, this word apocalypto roots from the word apocalypsis, and the word apocalypsis is the great revealing. It's the great revealing. What year are we in right now? The year of 2020. The year of clear vision. The year of the great revealing. You see, so many of us right now think that, this is the end of the world. Oh my God, we got COVID going on. Is this the apocalypse? When's Jesus coming? La, 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 la. There's all this fear about an apocalypse, but let me remind you that the apocalypsis in the Greek simply means the great revealing. Your eyes will open for all to see. And in the movie Apocalypto, you see what happens is the dialogue is, or the stage is, you have Hernan Cortez coming to conquer the Mayans. And you have the Mayans conquering their inner, or their surrounding tribes around them. And these Mayans are completely taking over these tribes, and in some cases and forms, sacrificing other tribe members to their gods. I'm not saying I agree with this. This is what's in the movie. And we've talked about Mayan spirituality and Aztec spirituality and the cyclical mindset behind the signs and things of that nature. But there's been corruption in many different empires. Now, what happens is as these tribes are being conquered, the father of one of his sons, of one of the outside tribes out of the Mayan city, says, son, because they hear about these Mayans conquering other tribes. And then the son gets scared. But the father sees right through the fear. He says, son, you've been infected. Cast the fear from you before you enter the tribe. Fear is a disease. He tells him, you've been infected. Cast your fear from you. Do not allow it into the tribe. You've been infected. The next day, as they're being conquered, right before his father gets his throat slit, he tells his son again, son, do not be afraid. You see, his father knows this is not the end. His father knows we are infinite beings. His father knows life is cyclical and not linear. His father sees. His real eyes realize real lies. I'm going to tell you guys another story. Life's experiences have taught me that fear itself is a virus. I was in beautiful Sedona one day. For many of you who have not been to Sedona or don't know what Sedona is, I highly encourage you to look it up. Look up Sedona. It's an absolutely amazing place. What I know of Sedona is that its healing energies are so healing that many of the different Native American tribes, many of our different ancestors would visit Sedona once a year, every year, to go through their healing rituals for their tribal members, because the energy there was so amazing, so empowering. And many people move there literally because they just feel better. Well, when you measure the energy, it's literally a vortex. And you can look up what a vortex is. But as I was in Sedona one day, and you just look it up, you'll see why this place is so amazing. As I was in Sedona one day, we're walking through Old Town, some friends and I, and there was a Native American man. He had a big old snake on his shoulders. And here I am in my fearful state. I hadn't overcome this yet. He had this big old snake on his shoulders, and he had snakes in a cage to his left, snakes in a cage to his right, like 5-6 different snakes. And he was helping children hold these snakes, not only hold them, but hold them on their shoulders and overcome their fear. And he had 2 signs. One to his right, it said, fear is a learned emotion. On the other side, it said, stop teaching it to your kids, parents. You see, fear is a disease. If a stressful environment can cause cancer, then fear can cause disease. Why? Because you are only stressed if you're operating in fear, meaning you don't feel like you can operate freely. You don't feel like you can be yourself. You don't feel like you can do what you want to do. The Most High's divine plan, you don't feel like you can fulfill that because you're operating in a stressful environment. You have somebody else trying to make you do something that you don't want to do. So if stress can cause cancer, then fear can cause disease. He said, fear is a learned emotion. Stop teaching it to your kids, parents. So I had to go live today to empower y'all to see through the fear, to realize real lies, to give y'all some perspective that's giving me some perspective, because that's all that this is perspective. But we must be willing to look. We must be willing to download. We must be willing to not just believe everything we're fed, but like Paul says, test all things and hold fast only to that which is good. Some of y'all are reading the book, but you're not embodying what it says. I did not give you a spirit of fear. it says. So we should test all things. We should test all information, because when this information comes in to us, it goes in, it forms, and it gets our body, our ions, into action or non-action. So we can either operate freely or we can operate stressfully. Fear is a disease. Remember Monsters, Inc. Remember Apocalypto. Remember what apocalypsis means, which is the great revealing. Remember. And I'm going to end this live with this. Time itself is not linear. There was no beginning point and an end point coming. No. You see, our ancestors didn't operate in that fashion. Our ancestors operated in the now. They weren't worried about yesterday or tomorrow. They were always focused on today, because they understood that every single thing was cyclical, which is why in Egypt they had 5 consciousnesses. They had the Amen consciousness, which represented you're asleep, you're spiritually asleep. Then they had the Kepher consciousness, meaning you've awakened, like the sun rising, you're awakening. They had the Un consciousness, representative of the sun being at high noon. Un, you're awakened spiritually, but you're kind of stubborn. You're not moving to the left, you're not moving to the right. They had the Ra consciousness, meaning you're stepping into your wisdom. You've overcome some of your stubborn mindset. And then they had the Aten consciousness, meaning you've reached your wisest state. You've overcome your ego. You've killed that ego, and you've desired to live for the good of other people. That's Aten consciousness. And many of us have heard of Akhenaten and how he changed ancient Egyptian spirituality forever. But after Aten consciousness, you go right back to Amen consciousness. Because after Akhenaten passed or was killed, they put up everything about Amen consciousness right again, to put the people back asleep and dependent upon a Pharisee type spirituality, rather than the Father and I are one type of connection. Why? Because when you have fear, you have control. But when you're operating freely with no fear, nobody needs to control you, because you know the Father and I are one. Real eyes, real lies. Fear is a disease. See through the fear. I love y'all. Peace.